This video is going to talk about how to find the area of a parallelogram. In order to find the area of a parallelogram, we're first going to go back and look at a rectangle. You can see this red shape here is a rectangle. It has four right angles in the corners, and it also has two opposite sides that are equal to each other. So these two sides are equal in length, and these two sides are equal in length. A parallelogram is basically a pushed over or a tilted rectangle. So the parallelogram here looks like the brown shape. There are other examples on the board. We'll get to those in a minute. But what a parallelogram is instead of having 90-degree angles, two of the sides are tilted. That totally looks tilted. There we go. The sides are tilted. So the measurements that we're going to use are actually still the same as the rectangle, but because it's not the measurements from a rectangle, we have to call it something different. So for a rectangle, we find the area by multiplying the length times the width. So we have the width going up and down the side, the length going across. I'm not really concerned with what you call the length and what you call the width on a rectangle, because if you were to tilt the rectangle onto its side, those two things would change. So as long as you know that one of them is the length and one of them is the width, I'm happy. On a parallelogram, we're still going to use those two measurements, but instead of calling it the length, we're going to call the base at the bottom. And this base, you can actually measure from the bottom or the top, but we're going to call it the base. So the first thing you're going to take is the base instead of the length. Then we need to look for the width on the rectangle, but we need to find that in the parallelogram. What we're actually going to do is draw in part of the rectangle to show the parallelogram. So this part of the rectangle is going to be the height on the parallelogram. And we're going to call this height. Now, if this is a little bit confusing to you, most parallelograms are not drawn with a rectangle inside of it. That's just a visual to kind of help you to understand the process. There's also a classroom activity that we may be doing in the past or in the future, depending on how this video goes. So the area of a parallelogram is going to be base times height. You'll notice I put the shapes for the area in there. That's not something that is mathematically required to do. It's just something that I try to do so I remember what shape I'm talking about. So let's go ahead and let's look at our first example. Our first example is a parallelogram that is 10 feet across, 3 feet on this side, and then it has a height of 2 feet. This parallelogram actually has a little bit of extra information in it. So let's go ahead and let's write the formula for the area of the parallelogram up on top. This is something that is going to seem very simple, but it is very, very important that you show your work properly for. So, first step, write out the formula. Area of a parallelogram is base times height. Second step, we're going to keep the A, because we don't know what the area is yet. We're going to replace the base and the height with the measurements from the parallelogram. So, the base of the parallelogram is actually here. We don't know this measurement, but we do know the top measurement. And in a parallelogram, the opposite sides are equal to each other. So because this is 10 feet, this is 10 feet. So you can really take the base from the top or the bottom of the parallelogram. So instead of B, I'm going to put 10. Now, B and H are together without any sign, so that means multiplying. So I'm going to go ahead, put a little multiplication sign there because now I'm putting numbers. Now I need to find the height of the parallelogram. To find the height, I'm not going to look on the outside because that's going to be this tilted part of the parallelogram. I'm actually going to look for something that is 90 degrees from the base. So it has to be perpendicular or 90 degrees from the base. And I find that right here. And that tells me that it is 2 feet. So I'm going to multiply 10 times 2 to find my area. Well, I know how to find 10 times 2. That's going to be 20. So the area will be 20 feet. But not just feet. It's actually going to be feet squared. Because we're in 2 dimensions now. Base and height only go one direction. The base only goes left to right. The height only goes up and down. But the area covers everything in this. Not just the distance across, but everything in here. So we're going to put that at feet squared, and that's going to be my final answer. Let's go ahead and take a look at this green question down here. We have another parallelogram that I need to find the area of, so I'm going to write off to the side, A equals B times H. Area equals base times height. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the base of this parallelogram. And I know that the base is 7 meters. So instead of B, I'm going to write 7. Put my multiplication sign in there. And now I need to find the height, which is perpendicular from the base. I can see that 90 degrees right there. So my height is going to be 9. 7 times 9 is going to be 63. So my area will be 63 meters squared, because now I'm in area. So we're finished with that. There are going to be some times that we don't know certain parts of a parallelogram. For example, I know here that the area is 30 miles squared. I know that the base is 3 miles, but I don't know the height. So in order to figure that out, we're going to set up the problem just like we normally would. A equals B times H. And now I'm going to plug in what numbers I know into this equation. I know the area is 30 miles squared, so I'm going to put 30 under the A. Carry down the equal sign. I know that the base is going to be 3. I don't know the height, so I'm not going to put anything except the H in there. Now I have 30 equals 3H. I need to figure out what the height is, so I'm going to solve this equation just the way I've been practicing time and time before. 3 and H are being multiplied together, so to get the H all alone, I'm going to divide by 3 on both sides. And I'm left with 10 for the height. So I know that the height is 10 miles. Let's take a look at one more. In this one, we happen to be missing the base. So what we're going to do is we are going to write the same formula again. I'm going to write it up top though so we can see it. A equals B times H. I'm told what the area is. I'm told that A equals 48 millimeters squared. So I'm going to put 48 for A. Under B, I don't know what the base is, so I'm not going to write anything. The height is 6, though. I know what that is, so I'm going to write 6. This is why you have to be very, very careful about the letters and the numbers that you write, because this could very easily be confused the sloppier you get. Do you know if that's a B or a 6? Because of context clues you do, but it could be very easily confused, and it's very difficult for me to tell on quizzes, and if I can't tell, I can't give you credit, so please be careful. That being said, 6 is being multiplied by B, so to get rid of the 6, my computer just jumped and I don't know why, so to get rid of the 6, I'm going to divide by 6 on both sides. And I'm left with B equals 48 divided by 6 is 8. So I know that the base is going to be 8 millimeters. Now, what I would like you to do on your homework form is you are going to find me the area of a triangle, of a parallelogram, where the base is going to be 4 centimeters and the height is going to be 7 centimeters.